Waiting for GIC rates to climb higher can cost you about $1,700 in lost interest on a $50,000 balance over 2 years, according to Ratehub and Edward Jones rate data. That is money surrendered purely for waiting on a rate spike that the Bank of Canada is signaling may never arrive. I read the fine print so you don't have to, and by the end you'll know whether to lock now or hold. The highest 1-year GIC in Canada pays 3.7% at Pathwise Credit Union as of July 2026, while many high-interest savings accounts sit at just 2.20% according to Ratehub and Edward Jones. On $50,000, that gap is roughly $750 in a single year, and neither product carries extra risk because both are CDIC insured up to $100,000 per depositor per member institution. Over 2 years, the waiting strategy forfeits around $1,160, according to the same comparison data. This is not a small rounding error. It is a 4-figure decision hiding inside a boring cash account. On one side, locking a GIC now at 3.7% guarantees the yield for the full term, regardless of what the Bank of Canada does next, according to Ratehub. On the other, waiting in a 2.20% savings account keeps your cash liquid but bets on a rate jump that current policy does not support. Let's break down who each option actually suits before we score it. Locking a GIC now suits anyone with cash earmarked for a goal 1 to 5 years out who value certainty over flexibility. Top 1-year GICs pay 3.7% and 5-year terms reach near 4.1%, compared with 2.20% on many savings accounts, according to Ratehub and WAWA's 2026 tables. The trade-off is simple. You give up access to the money for the term in exchange for a rate that is locked in against future Bank of Canada cuts. The biggest advantage of locking now is protection against falling rates. And that matters because the Bank of Canada held its overnight target at 2.25% in June 2026, with economists forecasting stability rather than hikes, according to Ratehub. On $60,000, moving from a 2.20% savings account into a 3.7% 1-year GIC lifts your annual interest from roughly $1,320 to about $2,220. An extra $900 in 12 months, according to Edward Jones and Ratehub. That is a guaranteed gain, not a hopeful bet. The genuine catch is term risk. Choosing the wrong length can cost you 4 figures over a single rate cycle. Locking short at 3.7% could backfire if rates drift lower, while locking a full 5 years at a big bank rate of 2.75 to 3.35% instead of a top provider's 4.1% leaves real money on the table, according to WAWA's 2026 data. And big banks quietly pay less than online banks and credit unions, which run about 1/4 to 3/4 of a point higher on the same terms. Waiting in cash genuinely suits people who need the money accessible within months or expect a large purchase soon, because liquidity has real value when your timeline is uncertain. High-interest savings rates range from 1.50% up to 4.75% depending on promotions, according to Ratehub's 2026 survey. The problem is that the headline promo rates rarely last, and the base rate at many big banks is just 2.20%, according to Edward Jones, so the everyday reality is far lower than the marketing. The strongest case for waiting is flexibility. Your money stays free to chase a promotional HISA above 4% or redeploy the moment a better opportunity appears, according to Ratehub's 2026 rate ranges. If rates truly spiked, unlocked cash could capture the new top offer without any early redemption penalty. But that advantage only pays off in a world where rates actually climb, and current policy is pointing the other way. The real catch is what I call the waiting tax. On $50,000, waiting 1 year in a 2.20% savings account earns about $100, while a 3.7% GIC earns roughly $1,850, a $750 gap for zero added safety, according to Ratehub and Edward Jones. History warns you here too. Many 5-year GICs briefly touched near 5% in 2024, but by early 2026, top rates had fallen below 4%, according to Ratehub and NerdWallet. Peak windows can be short, and waiting for them to return is expensive. Round by round, the numbers favor locking on yield, 3.7% on a 1-year GIC versus 2.20% on typical savings, and near 4.1% on top 5-year terms, according to Ratehub and WAWA. On $50,000, that is about $1,850 of interest in a year versus roughly $1,100 in cash, per Edward Jones. Cash wins only one criterion outright: liquidity, because your money stays instantly accessible. But that flexibility is the sole advantage on the board so far. On safety, it is a genuine tie. Both products carry CDIC insurance up to $100,000 per depositor per member institution, according to WealthView. On rate protection, the GIC wins because your yield is locked against the cuts economists expect while cash is fully exposed per Ratehub. Cash claws back 1 point on upside. It can capture a surprise rate rise. But with the Bank of Canada holding at 2.25%, that upside is more theory than forecast. Counting the rounds, locking a GIC now wins the yield and rate protection criteria decisively, taking most of the scorecard. Waiting in cash claims liquidity and a theoretical upside that current policy does not support. For most savers with a defined timeline, the numbers point one direction, but let's pin down the single figure that settles it. The single number that decides this for most people is 2.25%. The Bank of Canada's overnight target held steady in June 2026, according to Ratehub. Deposit and GIC rates hang off that policy rate, and a held rate means offers are far more likely to stay flat or drift down than to surge back toward the 5% some savers are waiting for. Before I get to the final verdict, which includes the counterintuitive move that beats both single options, hold that number in mind. If this is useful, subscribe. The next breakdown is already coming. So who wins? For the saver with money they won't touch for a year or more, think Amira, saving a home down payment 3 to 4 years out. Locking a competitive GIC now is the better fit, capturing the 1.5 point premium over cash, according to Ratehub and Edward Jones. For someone who needs the money within months, cash flexibility wins. But the smartest play often beats both. A GIC ladder, splitting $80,000 across 1 to 5 year terms averaging 3.9% could earn about $1,600 to $300 over 5 years, versus roughly $900 to $300 left in 2.20% savings, a $7,000 difference according to Edward Jones data. This is general information, not personal advice. Check the terms, the GIC's redemption rules, and your own circumstances before you move a dollar. Here's the clear rule. Choose to lock, ideally as a ladder, if the money is earmarked for a 1 to 5 year goal and you want guaranteed yield, and benchmark your rate against the top 3.5 to 4.0% offers, rather than accepting a big bank's lower number according to WOWA's 2026 tables. Choose to wait in cash only if you genuinely need access within months. And wherever possible, hold those GICs inside a TFSA or RRSP so you keep the full posted rate after tax. Per WealthView, this is general information, not personal advice, so confirm your own contribution room with CRA. Benchmark your current rate against the top GIC tables this week. If your safe money is earning 2.20% while 3.7% is on the table, that gap is costing you every single day. Next, I'm breaking down how a TFSA versus RRSP changes your after-tax GIC return. Subscribe so you don't miss it.